All right, now we have that, and let's go right here to. Okay, welcome back everyone to Aaron's Opinion. It's been a quite a while since I've been behind the microphone. I've been on vacation. I've been doing just a lot of things. We're joined this evening by someone who has wanted to be on the show for quite a while. She's waited very patiently. Her name is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. By the way, thank you, Sailor Cooper, Matthew Tyler Evans, for introducing me to this wonderful host. And basically, as you know, I'll just start the episode just as I would start any other by asking only one question and allowing you to walk through your fascinating journey and all the great things that you're doing for the disability community, special education, all of that. So I'll ask only one question. Who is Mary Elizabeth Jackson? You have 1 hour, dig into it, and I will interject as I need to, but just start talking. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Well, Aaron, yes, thank you so much for having me on today. And it has taken us a little while, but that's the way life rolls, isn't it? So I'm so glad that we have finally been able to do this. And I appreciate everything that you do for those in the community as well. And being a voice is really a really important thing. So I am a wife, a mother of three. I've been a parent for over 23 years now, and had no idea what my journey would entail along the way. So with my first child, she had some sensory issues, but the pediatrician told me not to worry about it. She would outgrow it, which of course she never did. And so she's had a lifetime of things like that, but I didn't know anything back then. And thankfully, the things I've learned along the journey have helped her in her life now as a young adult, and with dealing with some of the things she deals with. But when my second child was born, she was basically nonverbal. She did what's called cluttering, and so at 2.5. In her preschool, came in and did some early intervention testing on all the children. And I actually was kind of excited at first because I thought, oh, I'd like to see where is she in her development. And, she was a very quiet child. She rolled, she walked late. And then when she began with her cluttering, which was not English at all, it was, we thought it was kind of some cute fairy language. And I had raised my brothers, had a daycare, been a nanny. So I thought I knew some things, but I didn't know enough. So after testing came back, they let us know that at 2.5, she was developmentally about 18 months old. And so they gave her a developmental delay diagnosis, NOS, language, deficits, sensory processing, those kind of things. And so it began a journey with her, with therapists coming into the house and all kinds of things we had to change and do. And actually having to teach her her own language. She couldn't speak any English at all. And so we started with the board that says first and then. So we taught her 2-word sentences in the beginning. And she did a lot of screaming at this time because obviously they can't talk. They are very frustrated. And so she yelled a lot. And she did not, I didn't think I don't think she spoke I love you until she was over the age of 4. She really couldn't answer questions fully until she was between 5 and 6, the who, what, why, where, when, and how questions. Um, and she went into the state school program, and I had to learn a lot. I really did. I was green as the grass. Now, I want to back it up for a minute because the way I grew up, my mother worked in the community college in Orlando, Florida, at Valencia when I was a child. And she went into work in like 72, 73, somewhere around there when the IDEA and disability laws were coming into place. And she got a job at the college. and they put her in the handicap department with the handicapped students. And yes, that's the word that was used back then in the 70s. We don't use that word anymore. And these students had no services, right? And my mother didn't know what she was doing. She just knows that she knew that God placed passion on her heart. So she learned how to write grants and got money from the government at that time to write programs for the disability students at the college there. And so the programs she wrote, she ended up traveling across the United States teaching other colleges. There's still programs that are used today. So as I was growing up, in any given number night in middle and high school, we might have somebody at our home that, had cerebral palsy or was in a wheelchair or was blind or any number of challenges that someone might have that my mother was working with. So I grew up around this. I have a cousin who was born with cerebral palsy, neighbors with children. So it was nothing other than just kind of normal to be around that and to never have any thoughts about it, but I saw what my mother, these people, the folks would come to, the students would come to our house. They would come for love and a warm meal for my mom and our family. And so I really had no idea how much that would have an effect on my life as an adult. Mothers become advocates the moment we become pregnant with our children, because we have to be careful what we eat and what we drink and, all those various things that a mother has to do. So when my middle daughter was born and we started the process of all these things that she needed to get her to overcome or to catch up or whatever they were wanting her to do. It changed our family, the dynamics of it. And I began to learn about what it meant for her to have these challenges, but I didn't know how much I needed to know at that time. So fast forward a little bit, when she's 4, and then she in between turning 4 and 5, she goes into the public school system in a classroom for kids with special needs. And she then got diagnosed with on the autism spectrum as well. And during that period of time, this is 28, 29, quite a bit of trauma occurred for her. So she was abused by her special needs, a special education teacher, for about 8 months, along with other students in the classroom. So
I can't help it. That just frustrates me.
Yeah.
That's just so offensive. That's just, I mean, as a successful adult who's blind, that is so offensive to successful people. That is, I just have no sympathy. If you're going to abuse someone with a disability, I really have I don't have an ounce. I don't even have one breath of sympathy if you're going to hurt someone with a disability. That's just, I can't help people like that. So sorry, but it's just so frustrating.
No,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I don't think frustrating even I don't think it's an appropriate word.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But you know what I mean. It's just
Yeah.
so disheartened, just so disappointing and disheartening.
Tremendously disappointing, because some of the kiddos in her class, a couple had Down syndrome. I know a child was in a wheelchair. One was in a walker. And I won't go into detail the horrendous things that this teacher did, but because Lily wasn't fully verbal to tell me what was happening, we didn't know until we actually got a call from the police department letting us know. Like, the school didn't even let us know there was an investigation happening, and the teacher was taken out. And when I tell you that one day I'll write the story about all this, but it's something out of like a novel or a movie, the way things happen and how backhanded good old boy system that was going on here at the time. And it happens in cities and towns all across the world, but what was swept under the rug and tried to be denied is just absolutely incredible. We spent 3-4 years in a legal battle with 6 other families. Some of the most horrendous, wrenching years of my life, and for our daughter. And it was by the grace of God that we're here today, and that we're where we're at in life. It just, as a mother, you can imagine receiving that phone call. I think I fell to the floor, and I I don't know. It was sort of, I can't really remember exactly what I did next. I just know that, Miss Jackson, we need to talk to you and your husband about your daughter. And the teacher's been taken out of the classroom for verbally, mentally, emotionally, and physically abusing your daughter along with other children. Now they can't talk about the other children's cases, but um, when I say that's one of the loneliest places to ever be as a parent, because you can't really talk to anyone else about it, especially if you are in a legal battle. You are not allowed to talk to anyone because that can all be brought into court. Um, but to know that there were things that I did address and was told that it wasn't really going on. So I was lied to. Um, and there wasn't the physical bruising and things that you would expect, that you would notice right away with your child. Okay. Um, and anyways, from that, um, my journey as an advocate took another huge turn, and I began seeking to change the law in the state where we live. And I mean, Aaron, I had no idea what I was doing, sort of like my mom, right? But I knew that somebody had to make a change with this. Somebody had to change this. This should never happen to one child, ever, ever, ever. There's no excuse, no reason good enough for it to ever happen. So I made it. I made set meetings with senators and state representatives, the people who are supposed to be able to change the laws for us, right? That's what we pay them for. It's what they sit up there on the Hill, and every single capital city in the United States. And so if we don't go say something, nothing changes ever. And I have learned that we've got to have power in numbers in order to make things change in this world. It has to be more than just one voice. I was one voice at that time. And I just knew that all I knew is that God put me on autopilot. And it was what gave me a sense of purpose to make reason out of what happened to my child. And our life became filled with I was on an interview earlier today. They had asked me some of these questions earlier today, but it was filled with lots of therapy, because when a child is abused at those young tender ages, that gets locked in the brain pathways, like it gets stuck there. And the only way to get it out or process it is to have the right kind of therapy. I know when she was 16, we had to try, because there are triggers, right? Always for a person, especially when they're diagnosed with PTSD and other trauma related diagnosis. But we tried to move some of that trauma around in her brain so that she could access it and then be able to process through it. The question I was asked earlier today, Erin, was like, how did I approach that whole situation? Like, because like now she's 19, she's just finished her first year of college. She is in the animation filmmaking department where she goes, and she's doing very well. But that takes a lot of effort and work on family, parents, caregivers, whoever it is. You just can't ever stop. You have to keep moving forward, and as the caregiver or parent, it's our responsibility to find the therapies and whatever the help is that your child needs. That's our responsibility. Um, so, her life was, it was her entire elementary years. Cause remember, this happened before even going into kindergarten. So from kindergarten to fifth grade, especially, I can't even tell you what it was, a nightmare to try to keep her in school, because, that was an argument between the pediatrician and the psychologist and us. Do I keep her home? Do I not expose her to a school environment ever again because of the trauma? Then it was like, no, you need to put her in school. You need to keep making her go. So 6 years, that's what I did, was made her go to school, made her, go to a dance class or try out for softball or do karate. She did karate for about 3 years, and that was really beneficial. But she is the age she is, and she still has triggers, and then we have to sit down and we have to deal with it. It's cyclical for someone who suffers trauma in their early years. And, we were given the diagnosis from the forensic psychologist at the time. People who go through that, their life expectancy is less than other people based on the trauma. Well, what parent wants to hear that about their child? That they probably won't live past X amount of years. They'll probably have heart disease or cancer and they'll die early, or they'll have mental illness. Well, who wants to hear that, Aaron?
Right. Right. Nobody. Nobody.
Nobody. So then you want somebody to pay for that, don't you? I mean, somebody needs to be responsible for breaking my kid.
Sure. Sure. So whatever, well, fortunately and mostly, certainly, unfortunately, your story from everything you've been talking about sounds vaguely familiar to my story.
Okay.
So no, you are not alone. And no pun intended, you are not alone.
Thank you.
No. I also faced some tremendous challenges. Luckily, never really being abused in that sense. But what I can say, and whatever happened it's been about 20 years, 22 years. Basically, my parents also had to sue my school system a very long time ago.
Uh-huh.
After the talk later tonight, I'll send you the two articles. Yes, there's two articles,
Okay.
and you'll really get a lot out of that. But everything you're saying, unfortunately, unfortunately, sounds very familiar to me, and I think this is a very common. Tragically speaking, this is a tremendously tragic and tremendously common story that I'm hearing about all over the country. And this whole thing about dealing with disabilities in the school system and not wanting to provide services or providing the wrong services, or just the trauma that's associated with this, is a rampant problem.
Oh, it's
In my
it's
opinion and in my
rampant.
estimation.
Hmm.
And I'm also concerned. One of my concerns, and I'm now. By the way, I forget if I told you. I might be repeating myself, so I'll repeat myself a little bit. So I have glaucoma and a congenital heart defect. Specifically speaking, I have Peters anomaly syndrome,
Okay.
now known as something else. But I can tell you that I'm in a lot of Facebook groups for parents, although I am not a parent. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups along with my mother for parents of blind children, or many different groups on Facebook that I'm sure you're in, groups that are similar.
Yes.
And I'm seeing, and I got to tell you, Mary, I'm very frustrated because I'm seeing some parents like you who have completely stepped up to the plate and done a magnificent job in life. And then I see other parents that are asking questions, and you know what these questions are. And I read the questions with my voiceover, and I really don't say this in an offensive way, but some of these parents really scare me with how
Mm.
little they know. And I'm not demean. By the way, by me saying that, I'm not demeaning you, Mary. I don't mean it in a demeaning sense. What I mean is that I'm really concerned that there are too many parents that do not have, in my opinion, the necessary knowledge to arm themselves to be able to educate their disabled child.
I
And,
understand. I agree with
and
you
what
100%.
so but Mary, here's a great question for you,
Hmm.
Mary Elizabeth Jackson. So since I keep seeing these questions, I think that problem's getting worse. How do you philosophize that, and what's your professional opinion about that? Or is it just my imagination, everything I've just said?
No, it's not your imagination. Okay, so let me just start with
Sure.
one of the things I think is so important. Every time I'm talking about advocacy, every single time, one of the main things that if I get asked, what do you think is so important? I think education, 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 it's priceless. Okay, because when you educate yourself on whatever's happening for your child or to your child or about your child, you empower yourself to be able to empower your child to live a better life. Kids, humans have the incredible power to overcome unimaginable things in their life. I mean, we do as humans. It's amazing. What I've seen my kids overcome, and other children, it's amazing. So what I will say is educate yourself to then educate your child is equal to empowerment. And it takes you from a place of feeling like a victim to a victor. And that's what we want to do in life. We want to be resilient. We want to empower. We want to grow. We want to help. And so I think parents and caregivers, that is, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is just key to having success. And it's our responsibility to do it for our children, right? I don't care what age your child is, right? And I'll tell you, I headed up some meetings last year, and I'm an ambassador advocate for Autism Tennessee here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I headed up with Autism Tennessee some meetings with state reps and senators last year. And what we were trying to do is come at it from the disability community about how much all of this is still going on. Now, my research told me that 50% of the disability community is abused in school, whether by peer. There was no specific peer or teacher or whatever.
I think it's way higher than that, by the way.
And it
Unfortunately, it's far higher than 50%. I would say, in my own experience and own opinion on this show, I would say like 80%, 70, 80%. Just my opinion.
That is really high. But
I mean, that's what I really think. I mean, it's terrible, but I think that I don't want to say most students with disabilities are abused, but a very high percentage are. Very high percentage.
And I agree with you. And I think there's about 20% of the typical population of peers. That's like 1 in 5 kids. That's still too much, right? So we are trying to come up with how can we create some law to interject, right? Well, the thing is, I was told years ago, I told you I started that journey in like 2010 of changing law. And somewhere along there between 2010 and my little guy came late in my life. So it was somewhere between there and 2010 and 2015. I remember a state rep saying to me, Mary, we write laws every year for bullying, right? And nothing ever changes. I said, well, you need to do something different. Okay. I mean, that's just common sense. If it's not working, then you need to come at it from a different direction. So, we're trying to write legislation or create curriculum that would be like intervention academically that's based on teaching kids, how to express themselves, how to understand their emotions, how to mentally, emotionally be able to get to a better place. And it doesn't matter where you are on your journey, what challenges you have. All of us deal with mental and emotional stuff, right? Sure. But if we can teach kids tools to help them, and 1, maybe bullying will cut down. 2, children won't think that suicide is an option for them, which I just think that should never be an option in somebody's head. Okay. Because especially for a child, because they have so much ahead of them. Right. And, but the fight there is the whole social media and everything they're exposed to technology wise, it doesn't help. But one of the things I want to say to you is that back in 2012, I want to say, could have been early part of 2013, there was a congressman who was retiring in Washington, and he was he had a bit of the isolation restraint bill. They had a big thing here in Tennessee. They did back in 2010, 11 about it. And he needed some kind of piece for it. Well, there was a subcommittee that was searching across the country cases. They found my case and they called me and we did an interview over the phone. And what they told me was that as they were going across the United States and researching every case they found of families going up against school districts, they were losing. And somebody who was very high up in the education department here in the state I live in, confided in me that we had a systemic problem of abuse between children and special needs children and teachers, that it was chronic in this state that I live in. This was a long time ago. And so when you're asking me this question, it's my experience from these conversations I'm sharing with you that it's a problem still. it's a terrible problem and it should never ever happen. And I think it's lack of funding for training. I think it's lack of training, period, on the part of people who are working with individuals who have needs. You can't stick a typical person in a classroom with somebody who has special needs of any kind and expect them to know what to do, especially if you have a child who has, say you have a child with ODD, right? Oppositional defiant, and they don't know how to control themselves. Well, if you have no experience with that, you are not going to know what to do. Right.
Right.
So I think it's just a real breakdown of our system. We are, more kids are coming into the world that have challenges. That's not going to stop, right? It's not stopping now. What's the latest? 1 in 36 children by the age of 8 are diagnosed with autism now. 20 years ago, it was 1 in 200 and something.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
is going on?
Well,
So
what do you think? Not to, obviously, never to speculate or never to get into conspiracy, but what's your theory about why so many more children are diagnosed with autism? I have a I have a suspicion about what it is, but what's your suspicion?
well, first of all, did I answer your question just a minute ago? Was that good? Okay.
Y- Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's the whole beauty of this philosophical podcast. We kind of have a natural conversation where we try to figure out the conversation as we walk through it. So this should be natural, but it should be a very natural conversation. But yes, what's your theory
Yeah,
about
I just wanted to
more?
make sure that I had, answered
Thank you.
it.
You did. Yes.
Okay, I did a TikTok about this about a month ago, and there was over 3,000 people who watched it, and it was about this, Aaron, and it was like I talked about the new diet, the new numbers, and let's talk about why do we think I used to feel one, it was specific things about what's creating more and more children to have autism. When a mother is pregnant, if she has toxic already, right? Toxicities in her body, overload, food, water, the air quality, that goes to the fetus. So whether a fetus already has genetic stuff happening from the parents, they're coming into this world already with a heavy load, if you want to call it that. I think too many vaccinations are given too close. I think if you've got a body of a child that's already sensitive, now we can go into a lot of different directions here, because if you have a child who has MTHFR, which is a genetic mutation where the body doesn't methylate and break down properly, the body is going to be oversensitive already. So you have this little being coming into the world oversensitive already. And then you're going to put, we vaccinate children, and then their bodies are going to go into a mode of reaction. And then maybe they're not getting the right foods, or maybe their body is really sensitive to what's being fed to them. There's a whole bunch of things. I think it can be genetic. I think that we've got the air quality, food, diet. I think that vaccinations play part of it. I think medications do. Now, we are as natural as we can be in this house, but when those things are needed, we use them, right? I mean, if my child needs an antibiotic, I'm going to get my child an antibiotic. But I think it's a variety of things, and no two bodies are exactly the same. And I don't know if that answers the question,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I ran through a scenario of different things that I think all add up to why we have more and more of this going on.
Sure.
It's not stopping.
No.
So is it somebody, if you want to go with conspiracy theories, look at the whole pandemic we just went through. Somebody designed that to kill people off. I mean, that's what people think, right?
Well, no, I share a very similar very similar opinion. I have other, yes, I mean, I don't have that precise opinion, but yes, I share your sentiment on that. But I did ask, Mary, I did ask once in my teaching, because I teach English as a second language online. And one day I was having a conversation with a student who happened to be a great cardiologist. And I delved into, because you brought up the vaccine, so then we have to piggyback on it and kind of have to digest that a little bit. And I asked him that question that you didn't ask, but it was kind of hovering in the corner of your brain, and my mother's mind too. My mother also was wondering about the vaccine ish thing. And I asked him the question. I said, "So, what's the truth behind the connection between vaccines and autism?" And his opinion, this, and I'm going off of what a doctor said, his opinion was that he's pretty sure that there is no quote unquote causal relationship between vaccination and autism. He thinks, and he's pretty sure, that there was a particular person, and I don't know who it was, who got to the top of the pyramid of knowledge in medicine and published a paper to which their data was flawed. And so basically what I'm trying to say in a kind of in a gentle way is that it was kind of proven that might not be the case, that there's a connection between the vaccines. In other words, the doctor said it's not true. The vaccines do not cause autism. However, it's an opinion show, and you, Mary, are certainly, as a parent, are completely entitled to your opinion about it. I have my suspicions about vaccines in other ways. My mother is definitely suspicious about vaccines. Whether they actually, quote unquote, connect to the autism, the answer is I really don't know. I don't think so, but I do agree that all of these things you've mentioned play into the environmental impact of, as you said, quote unquote, the fetus, right? Sure. But here's another thing. Here's another stab at it to really figure this out. What about the social aspect? I think why there's so many more children diagnosed with autism, perhaps, is because when you live in a free country like America, doctors are free to talk about what they want, and more doctors are comfortable talking about autism as more and more doctors are comfortable talking about autism. What do you think about the social aspect of it as well? Doctors are comfortable talking about it. They're comfortable diagnosing someone with it now. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you. I think that it's become much more mainstream conversation where
Exactly.
we might have much more exposure to it. And so I do want to piggyback just and say,
Sure.
I'm not saying vaccinations are a cause of this. I
No,
do
no.
know my own experience with my son. After a certain age of vaccinations, he did change a lot, enough that the doctor even noticed. And he's considered vaccine damaged. My son is, okay? But what I'll say, I think when you have a body, when you have a human body that's very sensitive to everything, right? Sensitive to food, sensitive to chemicals, sensitive to drugs, sensitive to, and I mean medications. Uh, you know, the body, if it's in a state of overreaction, if we think about that, then there's inflammation in the brain, inflammation on the nervous system, and then it creates different symptoms in a person.
Right.
Okay. So when you take a child and you detox them and you calm their symptoms system down, their body reacts differently. And I'm coming and talking about this from my own experience with my child.
Right.
Um, we did some detoxing with him through a doctor when he was little, and all of a sudden his language burst forth. Okay. He could not tell me if he was hungry or needed food or nourishment of any kind. It did not connect between the brain and the stomach. So as a mother, I fed him every couple hours, like you would. Children eat every couple hours, during the day, not at night. But you know what I mean, on instinct, because this is my third one, right? But through the detoxing, he then began to say, "I'm hungry," and could tell me he needed food. And he was a child who, when you walked up to him, say when he was in the stroller, he would begin screaming at you so loud that you would have walked away from him, Aaron, because it would have scared you. And so we didn't go in public very much.
Right.
So nobody can touch him but me. And through the detoxing that happened with him and cleaning his system out and eating really healthy foods and everything, that stopped.
Right.
It stopped. And then he let people touch him. I mean, he's a pretty huggy person now with people he knows. If he doesn't know you, he won't let you touch him. Okay. But that's where I'm talking about. I think that in certain bodies, all of these things react differently, and it creates,
Right.
symptoms for people. But I do think that the social aspect is very important. We are talking about it more. 23 years ago or 22 years ago, it wasn't talked about very much like it is now. So when I went into the pediatrician and she diagnosed my daughter with texture sensitivity and said, "Oh, it's fine, it'll go away, she'll outgrow it. You don't need to do anything." Well, there really wasn't much for me to look up about it. And I believed my pediatrician at that time. Well, it's not true. I mean, my daughter had sensitivity to fabrics and colors and sight, noises and lights and, all kinds of stuff. Um, and so you kind of have to live your life differently with your kiddo when they're very sensitive. And also, I apologize for, that what I was trying to say is there is that conspiracy theory out there about the pandemic that it was created for
Sure.
that. It doesn't mean that's what my belief system is. Okay. But
Well, yeah.
it's out there, and it makes you sometimes wonder and go, you know, because like you're doing right now, we're talking about this, we're wondering, what are the causes of autism? And I think there's a common denominator for what autism is, in the sense that it's an oversensitive body of the
Right.
human body, and you're sensitive to lots of different things. So if you have a body that's very sensitive and we keep feeding it and giving it things that just keep it reacting, it's probably going to get worse.
You sure? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah. I mean, the answer is it's probably it's just a very complicated thing to understand because the answer is I'm third. Well, I turn next month. I turn 32. 32 years ago, the answer is there were just as many, or in my opinion, there were probably just as many children in America with autism 32 years ago. We just didn't talk about it as much. So
Well, and kids weren't getting diagnosed as much. And there are people who
right, right. But what I'm saying is they're still. I'm not saying there wasn't autism 32 years ago. What I'm saying is they just didn't diagnose as readily and as willingly. I think there's also a aspect to the willingness to diagnose. But yes, go back to what you were saying. Sure.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say that before. Autism's not a new thing. People with challenges, it's not a new thing. It's just more out front. Just like since we went through the pandemic, look at the mainstream conversation. That's like I listen to my daughters, their age, and all their college friends, their conversations are about feelings and emotions and thoughts and mental health. I'm taking a mental health break today, mom. Like I'm having an over empathic day today. I'm oversensitive. I need to go and I need to have some decompression time. That's the language we use in our house. But I noticed the college kids they hang out with, they talk about this stuff like it's everyday conversation, which on one end I think is fantastic
And it's
because
good that they're talking about it at least. I do appreciate that.
yeah, talking about depression, anxiety. I mean, I have sat with a group of my daughter's friends discussing the anxiety they're going through at college. And I'm really glad they felt comfortable to talk to me about it. So we talk about it. Well, let's figure out some things that will help you to get through it when you're feeling this way. Because college is stressful and you're
Yeah.
going to feel anxiety and you're going to feel overwhelmed. What can you do about it? So we walk through and I gave them all these tools to use. Sometimes they'll come home with my daughter from school. Hey, mom, such and such needs to talk to you. Um, and I appreciate that because I would much rather them do that than to be walking around ready to burst a bubble.
Sure. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's so many possibilities to all of this. But what it boils down to is that there's more and more of them coming in and being diagnosed. And the other thing is also, Aaron, when you have a kid at the pediatrician's office now, I know here locally, they start with questionnaires very early. Is your child doing this? Is your child doing that? Because they want to diagnose them early because what research shows and experience shows the sooner you get a child services and help, the faster they can overcome things.
Well, it depends on the services and help.
Yes.
So not necessarily just because they say help. Well, sometimes you don't want the help. Help is not always positive. Trust. Well, I don't have to say trust me. You already know this. Help is not always a good thing. So it depends on the help and services. Sometimes you might not want a diagnosis or services or help because they might be not good. So
Right.
it depends. But I do see the logic there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I know after my son was born and then he had different things than my daughters did. Then I went through the Vanderbilt program to get certified. And so from there, it's just been a journey of like helping parents and families, educating people. I've done things, some of the things I've done, I didn't know I was going to end up doing, Aaron, but it was like, I have a real passion for the library because I'm an author as well. So I love
By
the
the way,
library.
definitely plug your work. What have you written? What books have you written?
Okay, so I have a series now. They're being revamped. Now you could go to Amazon and buy copies that are left, but it's being revamped right now by a new publisher. But I have a children's series. It's 3 books. It's called Perfectly Precious Poolicious, and it's for littles. My little guy, when he was born, he was the one who inspired me. And they go from newborn up to about the age of 7. There's 3 books in the series. And in them, I have I am pages so that kids can start that positive language very little. I am amazing. I am strong. I am love. I am joy. And I have a middle grade reader that's called Cheers from Heaven. That is a redemption bullying story. And it's about 5 kids who bullied a child who the child died from leukemia. But 6 months after his passing, these kids start to feel really guilty about what they did. And so they go on a journey of going to the parents and apologizing. And the child had left them a box of notes. And it sends them on this, journey of
Wow.
they learn how to forgive themselves. They learn how to be forgiven and forgive others and learn how to accept each other. So they end up changing their whole school to be this really positive inclusivity type of school. And
Is that a true story or
well, it was based on a true story from with my co-writer and something that happened to him when he was in elementary or middle school. One of the kids passed away, but we wanted to do something that was I like empowering kids and I like to do it through storytelling. So if you're telling a story and you can educate at the same time, you got a win-win going on there, right?
sure? Absolutely.
And so I'm about to work with a friend of mine who's a doctor, and her specialty is like brain plasticity and neuroscience.
Uh-huh.
And so we're going to create a series. Actually, we're going to be doing some programs for parents to learn some educational programs, but also we're going to be doing a series with the life experience and then that education and that science behind it. Which I'm just really, really excited about doing because I have such a passion for helping families and empowering them, empowering kids and making families stronger. That's our first relationship in life. And if we can heal the family we have, it's a win-win for everybody. Not all relationships are perfect. And but we're given families for a reason, aren't we, from the beginning?
Sure, sure. And then how did you get into podcasting? I believe that you are also a podcast host
I
along your journey.
am. Yes, I want to have you. Sailor and I have not gotten him on the show yet, but I maybe I should just tag team you both and put you on at the same time. Because you guys are buddies, right? Um,
Yeah, so to clarify, so I've never met in person. I've never met Sailor or Matthew Tyler Evans. Um, I don't know how I came across them, just through the podcast journey. But no, we've never met in person. We're all great buddies in the podcast
right.
sphere, of course, but we've never
Yes.
actually met. Yeah.
Yes, no, I haven't either, just through the podcasting world. So yeah, I about 5 years ago this summer, I started with a friend of mine. She's in Cape Town, South Africa. We have a
Cool.
show called Writers Corner Live Network. Actually, the show is every Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning, Central Time, excuse me. And we interview authors from all over the world. And we love it. We've had such a great time doing it. And that is on like Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all the, those platforms, and Amazon Live. And then I have one called Special Needs TV that has been on hiatus for a little while. But that one is all about the special needs world, and it's about resources and interviews with families and doctors and, things that I think are important. But my podcast is called Cover to Cover, and it is about, it was started out as an author show, but it's really an inspirational show. Like if you have something going on that I think is really inspirational, I don't really care if you've written a book or not. I want to share you and talk about it, and I think it's really important. I love talking to people and hearing their backstories and, what inspires them, why they do what they do, where they are. Because I think it helps for us to hear stories like that. It helps us to not feel alone and to sometimes be inspired. I was very inspired by the woman yesterday I interviewed, and hers was all about overcoming people pleasing, being that chronic people pleaser and having healthier relationships. How do you do that? Well, you got to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and go, what do I need to do to change to be the better version of myself? And that takes a lot of guts.
Yeah. I'm not a people pleaser. And if you look at my track record, let me tell you about my records. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm a people displeaser, actually, for the most part. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, as another successful podcast host, I can tell you for the most part, I displease some people, but occasionally I please people like you. So that's kind of my philosophy in life, and people, and I'm sure you've run into it. I have had guests on my show where, there are guests on the show, then after that, the relationship fizzles out. That does happen, but I don't have a lot of sympathy for people in a philosophical sense. So no, I'm not a people pleaser. If anything, most of the time I'm a people displeaser, except so let me tell you, yes, probably if you talk to me long enough, yes, I'm going to hurt your feelings. But you know what? But you know what? If you're doing a great job, you're going to be pleased in the end. And that's really the lesson that I try to push to people is that, sometimes you have to offend people a little to get the point across all the way. And that's kind of what people are missing out on. They say, well, my feelings. Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a douchebag thing for me to say, but feelings are important, and it's good to talk about them, and it's good to have a healthy feelings. But don't let your feelings to some extent, dictate your whole life. To some extent, people say, well, I can't do it because of my feelings. Well, that's not a reason to have feelings. We have feelings so that we can do things. But I don't know. That's just my perception of that, which is pretty cynical, but that's my perception.
Well, but you know what? There's a place for all of us in this world, Aaron. And
sure,
we need
absolutely.
The people, we need the people who are cynical. We need the people who are more sensitive and emotional. And it helps us. It's sort of like, that whole yin and yang thing, the whole salt and pepper, we left and right brain, we there's a place for all of this to come together to teach. It's like, children having a male and female energy in their life teaches them how to access both parts of themselves, so that you're not on one side too much or in the middle, or you're just kind of maybe more have a balance, like, okay, let me give you an example. So my parents divorced when I was 11, 12-ish. My dad left. So what I grew up seeing was a mother who took on the world and raised her 3 kids by herself, right? So in the back of my mind, I didn't even know this was going on in my own marriage. I just take the lead and do it. And not that I run over my husband. I just, at some point, an aha moment went off for me. And I went, oh, right, we need to be parenting together. I don't, all I had was my mother, during very important years of my life. I watched her do everything. So that told me I didn't need my husband to be doing this because I can do it, so it's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 12 minutes left. As I say with every amazing guest like you, I see the hour always just flies by, especially when you do a magnificent job sharing your knowledge, which is what you do. You share a lot of knowledge and a lot of inspiration with people. And I think people really need to hear your story. But
Thank
I'm
you.
more interested in what do you really want to know? I'm sure that you have questions about Aaron Richmond. And now that you know that I'm such a cynic and such a character, I'm sure you really want to get under my skin and really ask me questions to make me sweat and see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster.
Okay, what's your
What do you
favorite topping on your ice cream?
favorite ice cream topping? Nuts, peanuts, caramel, pistachio. I just got back. I just got back from a 2 month vacation in France because I'm a French speaker, and they have all sorts of. Well, yeah, traveling. By the way, when you have a disability, traveling can be really influential, and it's a big part of my father's life, and it's a huge thing that we value. Traveling overseas is a huge. It's immensely exhausting and immensely rewarding. But
I'm so jealous. You spent two. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing, Aaron.
it
Oh,
flew by. It flew by, and it was. I'm able to speak French 24/7, but it was exhausting. Like it's exhausting. I mean, just moving from Airbnb to Airbnb. It's like, oh my God, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we really, really? Oh my God, a couch? You mean I can
right.
sit there? And then the other fun joke that our family has about France is in France the showers don't really work very well. So you have to get wet for 30 seconds, turn the water off, let it drain out, or else you'll flood the entire building. Then you have to wait a second. Then you have to put the soap on. Then wait another second. Then wash it off. Then rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And then by that point you're just so exhausted. Well, I don't have any energy to do anything else now that I got a little bit clean. So no, that's true. And the
I
locks on the
love that.
doors. It's true though. It's true. The water in France is weird, and the plumbing in that country is weird. It's old-fashioned plumbing, so it's like back to the 50s where things flood and don't work all the time. It's weird. You wouldn't
Well, it's
expect
even
that.
farther back than the 50s. And I have never heard anyone tell that. I'm so glad you shared that with me because that's like something new. I'm living vicariously through you in the moment, right? Because I've never been there. Would love to go. I love the French language. I took 4 years of French in junior high and high school. And because I didn't keep it up, which I wish I would have, because I love the language so much. But let's see if I can stump you with a question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Because you're still a kid, right?
Well, we all are children at heart, even though that I'm 32. But I appreciate that. My all of the people in my family live until their upper 90s, and several people made it to 100. So I'm going to be here for a
You
while.
got a long way to go, buddy. So what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, well, so I guess who knows? The intellectual answer is, well, I really want to be someone who is remembered for helping others.
Hmm.
Hundreds of years from now, I want people to be able to go back in the future in the 2500s, I guess, and hey, let's go back to YouTube and see that Aaron's Opinion TV, or God, that historical figure, that Mary Elizabeth Jackson. God, she was a really nice lady who gave a lot of knowledge to society. What I want to do is I want to try to give people knowledge. I want to try to give people information that helps them, and that's what we should all want to be when we grow up, however old or young we are. But like I was alluding to at the beginning of the conversation, I'm concerned because I see great people like you and you're doing a magnificent job. Don't let anyone tell you differently.
Oh,
But I also see people that, again, not trying to be mean, but are just not getting it. And I don't know if it's like two sides of the society, but I'm really, as someone who cares about others, I really care for them, and I really am concerned about. I'm really concerned about them. So I want to eventually create or keep creating this product, this Aaron's Opinion thing, whatever it is. But whatever it ends up being, I want it to be something that people will be able to appreciate later on and look back on and say, that Aaron Richmond, he had some strange opinions, but he helped a lot of people along the way.
I love it. I love it. So you and I we have the same passions that way, and being like this conduit for constructive information to flow through, and in helping others to expand their awareness. It doesn't mean that we're smart and they're dumb. It means helping them
Right.
to, it's like sharing information to empower others. Because sometimes, Aaron, maybe what you're seeing, and sometimes it surprises me as well, just because I
Hmm.
am one who goes to seek information, is that they just don't realize it's there, and you don't know what you
Yeah.
don't know until you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Right. And that is a huge problem, is that there seems to be a constant lack of knowledge and lack of information is a rampant thing. Yeah.
I agree. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep focusing on both of us about resources and tools and information and helping others. And hopefully our platforms will grow. And, I think it's harder to be successful doing what you and I are doing than the folks on TikTok who are running around half naked doing stupid stuff and everybody watches them. So,
Yeah. Well, there's a theory going around that why do so many of our videos where we're giving positive knowledge, why do they get so few views? Because you know what? Because it's a lot harder to get people to watch a video that's positive. And it's a lot harder to keep someone's attention when you're just giving them knowledge. So that's why it's harder.
I
Because we're
know.
helping.
Yeah,
Which
but I
which
don't
is
want to.
really twisted, but that's what the real reason is. People want to watch negative stuff. Why? I don't know.
I know. I know. And I don't understand that either, but I do know it makes it harder for people like you and I to kind of live out our passion and do what we're doing because I don't want to compromise myself
Right.
by, you know, I don't know, doing something that is just what I would consider, no, I'm not doing that on camera.
Right. So just keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about the people who are running around naked on TikTok. Try to stay dressed the entire time. It's an interview. I know it's hard. Just please keep your clothing on. God, what's wrong with people?
I
But
know.
but hey, you know what? But you know what? We'll do the normal educational, knowledge based stuff, philosophy stuff about the disability community, and the other people. You know what? If they want to get naked on TikTok, fine. But I'm not gonna be upset when they get upset 30 years from now. Aaron, someone says that I shouldn't have gotten naked on TikTok 30 years ago. I told you 30 years ago. Don't
I
get
know. Hey, you
naked.
want to know something funny? Okay, so we went to Target earlier so my little guy could spend his birthday money from his grandmother.
Oh God.
And
Okay, this is already a horror story. Okay, right. Horror music in
no,
the background, already not going well. Go ahead.
no, it's not a horror story at all. It's
Oh,
amazing. So the little guy who checked us out, I'm assuming that he's late high school, early college age. And so Carson had X amount of dollars, and we get up there. Well, it's more than what he had in his mind because the item he picked out was in the wrong spot on the shelf at Target. So I gave him his money. I said, okay, I need you to pay the bill, and I need you to understand we don't have all the money here. So the guy was so sweet. He went into the registry, took $20 off the bill so that my son could afford to buy his items. I was just like, I looked at Carson. I said, I want you to know, little man, nobody does this ever. So you need to give him your firstborn child someday. Okay. we were, we were laughing. So then he and my daughter start talking about, I don't even know, maybe they were talking about college and she's about animation. And he's like, oh, he does something with videos and gaming. And he said, yeah, I'm on TikTok. Well, he shows us his TikTok. This guy has 9.2 million likes on his
oh God.
TikTok, and he's
Ooh
working at
la la.
Target, and he has I don't know how many million people following him, and he makes money on TikTok. And I said, what are you doing in Target when you're making all this
Well,
money
no,
on
that's no. Wrong question. Let me correct you. You should have said, "What are you doing on TikTok?"
that? I did say that. No,
Oh,
I said both. Like I meant it both ways, right?
right.
So we are now friends on TikTok. I have to go look him up because it's not like his name; it's like a code name or something. But I said I'm going to study what you're doing. I want to know what you're doing because I said a mom like me who's getting on and talking about like authors and their backgrounds and things about advocacy in the world and living a better life. I said we're not as popular as people like you. So I just thought that was amazing to like meet him, and he's so successful. I don't know what his parents think about it, but I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah. Cool story. Cool story to wrap it up. And I mean, if you have time for one more question, if you can ask me only one more question, what do you
Okay,
want to know?
ask you.
Only one more. One more question.
Okay, let me what is what is one of your biggest dreams to do, like on your bucket list in your life?
Well, I mean, I do hope to really be able to grow my product as Aaron's Opinion and Aaron's Opinion TV. I would like to be able to start a business one day doing something. I don't know quite what, but My real dream is that I, like you, I want to see appropriate change being made in this country. And I see that the appropriate change is not coming. So I want to, my dream would be to see a day where children with disabilities are not bullied in school, or where we see instead of a 70% unemployment rate for blind people, we see a 70% employment rate for blind people,
Oh,
or
yeah.
something like that. I would really, the dream would be for me to know that what you and I did today helps someone 30 years from now. That's how a dream works.
Right, it does. And
That's really
listen,
how it
I
works.
want to I want to
Yeah.
share with you, and any of your viewers out there, if you look at billion-strong.org, they are an organization globally. I'm an advisor, an advocate with them. They make sure that companies all over the planet hire people with disabilities or challenges. So you may want to check them out. They're very, very positive organization. And okay, so my girls, this is the last thing I would just want to share with you. My girls are singers, and we have a new song coming out. And the reason I want to share this with you is because it's about inclusivity. So the song is called Breathe In and Remember, and remember who you are. It's about remembering who you are, who God made you to be, who you are in this world, and to breathe in and calm down and relax all the worries and anxiety. I told the girls I think we need to tie this to a platform of inclusivity. So we did a video several weeks ago, and we have Down syndrome kids, kids with autism, typical kids. Everybody's together celebrating who they are.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So
Absolutely. If someone wants to get in touch with Mary Elizabeth Jackson, how can they do that?
they can go to my website, www.maryejackson.com, and you can contact me there. Also, there's some, downloadables and stuff there. And then I'm on Facebook, Mary Elizabeth Jackson, LinkedIn that way. Instagram, I think I'm Mary Jackson 05, something like that. So, I'm a little bit, we do the social media stuff, don't we?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. And then how'd you come up with the '05?
Because there's five of us in the family, so we're the Jackson Five.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it really has been an honor and pleasure to have you on the show. You're forever welcome here on Aaron's Opinion. And just know that, yeah, you're doing an incredible job with your podcast. And I look forward to being interviewed by you at some point.
Absolutely.
Anytime you want to have me on, we'd have to work out a day and time, but absolutely. And anyway, that's where, anyway, obviously don't hang up. I still have something to say off air, as we say. But anyway, that's where I'll leave this one today. Wonderful interview, as always. Wonderful episode of Aaron's Opinion. Mary Elizabeth Jackson, thanks so much. Don't forget, guys, click the links in the description for more information about that. Just stay safe out there, and if you're gonna go on TikTok, just for me, just keep
Keep your clothes on.
could you please? That would be Do you know how I end an episode of Aaron's Opinion?
How?
By me saying, thanks so much, everybody. Stay safe out there from around the world. And as I like to say here on Aaron's Opinion, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow. All right, and we're still on the live over on YouTube, but that's fine. I'll just say I'll send you a link to my Facebook group, my private WhatsApp group for all of the guests for Aaron's Opinion. You can definitely join that WhatsApp group and talk to all the guests. Share your website, share your story. They would love to hear from you from all over the world. And I'll also send you some articles about my past and my parents' fight, very similar to yours, that you'll find very, very, very interesting.
No, I can't wait.
Yeah. Any final questions? When I do end the Zoom, it ends very abruptly just because it's hooked up to YouTube. So any final questions before I sign out here?
I don't think so. I'm just really so excited to be here. I appreciate it so much. I love spending this time with you, Aaron, getting to know you. I love what you're doing in this world and your family. Love to meet your parents sometime. And we will figure out a time to have you on. And I hope this is the start of a long friendship.
Absolutely it is. All right, everybody on YouTube. Well, don't forget, if you're still watching on YouTube, comment below. That always helps. Like it if you like it. That also helps. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell, do all of that. Hey, share this video with a friend. You never know. Even sharing it with one friend that really needs this conversation, that might help them a ton. All right? All right, everybody. Enough of this all great conversation. We'll be back soon. We'll be back anytime here on Aaron's Opinion. Stay safe out there, everybody. And as we like to say again, for the YouTube people, help one person today. Help 1 million people.